Why aren't they, as in Israel and Hamas, or Palestine for that matter, why aren't they getting together? I mean, they are neighbors, they should be friendly. Why aren't they?
Why aren't we getting together with Pakistan?
So, Israel being one of the strongest nations, they're not weak, that's for sure. How did terrorist organizations like Hamas give them a surprise? I mean, where did this Hamas get this, ammunition from? I mean, it cannot, see, they are not financially strong as Israel, they are not militarily strong as Israel. But how is this? I mean, isn't this a surprise?
Whether they have overestimated their own capabilities, underestimated their enemies, if they have got information of rockets being assembled, whether they thought it will be the usual salvo of 10-15 rockets that happens every 3-4 months, whether there was a lapse in decision making, whether there was a lapse in intelligence gathering, all these today is a matter of conjuncture.
So now that we are seeing that the aircrafts are bombarding, do you also foresee a ground attack? I mean, what happens next?
Air attack is very easy to do because Hamas as an organization, as you yourself referred to, is a terrorist organization.
Right.
It does not have air defense capabilities that a nation state would have. The problem that Israel will face is when it tries to launch its ground attack, because Hamas is well entrenched in Gaza. For the last 17 years, it's ruling that area. If you enter a city, if your tanks and your armored carriers cannot move, there is no maneuverability.
Okay.
It's like Bangalore traffic jams, right? So once they are caught in the midst, any person with an RPG can take out an armored carrier through a window or through the debris. So it is going to be a nightmare. No professional military person would like to go into a street war. If I was a Hamas leader, I would be waiting for the day the airstrikes would stop and the Israeli forces come in.
Are we looking at a conspiracy theory here? I don't believe in it. I don't know, because you're an expert, so you can throw some light. Was it that Israel wanted them to attack them and then finish Hamas for once and for all?
No, this is making the rounds probably from about a week or so. I think this is an attempt by leftist organizations or channels to deflect the horrific images and the narrative that Hamas attacks set. This is to deflect the attention, just as 9/11 attackers were said to be a plant of the CIA, and Modi created that Pulwama massacre. So these are all instances to counter the narrative and to put some doubt in the minds of the population. I don't think, because Israel has lost a lot in the initial 2-3 days, and it has lost not only its citizens but also its face.
Namaste all. Today we have with us KS Rajeev. He has rendered his service in Indian Air Force for 22 years. He has retired as a wing commander. Today he is with us to discuss about the ongoing issue of Hamas and Israel. So let us know more about the war that is ongoing. Sir, namaste. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So the very first question is, why aren't they getting together? I mean, why aren't they, as in Israel and Hamas, or Palestine for that matter, why aren't they getting together? I mean, they are neighbors, they should be friendly. Why aren't they?
Why aren't we getting together with Pakistan?
Because of the radical nature.
Yes. So it's more or less the same. See, the animosity between these two civilizations or these two entities goes a long way back. It is not of recent origin. In fact, if you look at the time window, you can take it all the way back to 635 AD when Islam came into existence. So it is not a recent issue, and the fractures there are too deep to be glossed over. It is not going to take a small diplomatic effort to bring them together. And unfortunately, each political figure who arises in both these organizations has an individual story of an impact of these two organizations or this animosity behind him. If you look at the current leadership of Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's brother was himself killed in an army operation against Islamic militants. So there is both an individual pain as well as a community collective pain that is there ingrained in these two communities.
So there's not just the land, there's also a personal enmity.
Yes, it's a personal animosity, community animosity.
So which one is playing the major role here? I don't think the personal grudges between them would have led to a war. Do you think so?
No, it's not led to a war. It affects decision making at some point. right? I am not saying that individual fractures have led to this war. No, that would be the wrong statement to make. What I am saying is positions harden because of individual experiences. This war is a collective aim of one community to exercise its right to stay there, and it was done with that kind of an aim. The second party, that is Israel, is trying to protect its survival, right, and is responding.
Right.
So it's if you look at a small time frame, it's very difficult to say. Based on the time frame, you can decide who is the villain and who is the hero here. Mm-hmm. In my perspective, there are no heroes or villains here. It's all in the grey. Both of them have their weak points and their strong points.
But then I have seen most of them, as in at least most of the non-Muslims, take a stand here. They are standing with Israel for a reason that it was not the Israel that started the war, at least now. I don't know.
Correct.
I mean,
correct.
Historically, we don't know. But then it was 5,000 rockets is what we are talking about. I don't know exact numbers, but then 3,000 to 5,000 rockets bombarding a capital of Israel, caring nothing about the citizens. So, I mean, the non-Muslims have taken a stand that they are standing with Israel. But then the Muslim nations and then the Islamists in the Islamic countries and even in India, they are standing by Hamas. What do you think about it?
What you say is true. I agree with that. See, the whole world community, barring a few in the Islamic world, is standing with Israel just because of the fact that it was the one who got attacked first. Okay. And not only attacked, in this age of telecommunications and instant communications, social media, the barbaric acts of the Hamas militants were broadcasted live. If they wanted to show their might, this was the wrong way of doing it. It only hardened the position of the world community to support Israel. So I think that part of their operation was a failure.
So Israel being one of the strongest nations, they are not weak, that's for sure. How did terrorist organizations like Hamas give them a surprise? I mean, where did this Hamas get this ammunition from? I mean, it cannot, see, they are not financially strong as Israel, they are not militarily strong as Israel. But how is this? I mean, isn't this a surprise?
It is a surprise. It takes us back to our own experiences with respect to Pathankot, Mumbai attacks, as well as Uri. India is a far bigger nation, far stronger nation, both militarily and economically, than these military organizations or these militant organizations, or Pakistan for that matter. But we were taken by surprise, right, on all those three instances. Similarly, Israel, whose intelligence agencies and defense forces are considered the best, they are referred to in hushed tones whenever you speak of them because of the daring operations carried out by them, be it Entebbe, be it the Munich Olympics, be it the MiG-21 hijack by them. So they have some very good daring operations that they have successfully conducted. However, sometimes your own success plays into your mind.
That's
whether they have overestimated their own capabilities, underestimated their enemies, if they have got information of rockets being assembled, whether they thought it will be the usual salvo of 10-15 rockets that happens every 3-4 months, whether there was a lapse in decision making, whether there was a lapse in intelligence gathering, whether they trusted technical inputs more than human intelligence. All these today is a matter of conjuncture. We have to wait for the fog of war to come down.
It's too early to judge on it. Right. So now that we are seeing that the aircrafts are bombarding, do you also foresee a ground attack? I mean, what happens next?
See, air attack is very easy to do because Hamas as an organization, as you yourself referred to, is a terrorist organization.
Right.
It does not have air defense capabilities that a nation state would have.
Right.
So you are virtually bombing without any resistance. Right. So you can bomb at will. The problem that Israel will face is when it tries to launch its ground attack. Right. Because Hamas is well entrenched in Gaza. Okay. It has been ruling that part of the land for the last, it came into power in 2006. So for the past 17 years, it's ruling that area.
So are you saying it is because of the the people there in Gaza that they have turned into soldiers, or is it the
No, it's a fertile ground. See, this animosity between those two, which we covered about 5 minutes back, is a fertile ground for terrorist organizations to recruit soldiers. It's a very fertile ground.
because of the victims?
Because victimhood is there, you can tell stories, you can make up narratives.
Right.
So you can say Israelis did this and that, whether it is true or not, that plays on the minds of young Palestinians. So it's a fertile ground for recruiting. Having said that, Hamas also has extensive tunnel network. Some say more than 500 to 600 kilometers dug inside, about 30 to 40 kilometers deep inside the earth.
Okay.
And there is huge scale debris because of these bombings. All this has created a virtual landmine for Israeli ground forces. Israel enjoys superiority in armored and firepower,
Okay.
right? But if you enter a city, if your tanks and your armored carriers cannot move, there is no maneuverability.
Okay.
It's like Bangalore traffic jams, right? So once they are caught in the midst, any person with an RPG can take out an armored carrier through a window or through the debris. So it is going to be a nightmare. No professional military person would like to go into a street war. However, politics in Israel would want to deliver a very strong message to Hamas and to the world. So politics will dictate how these operations are conducted
At the cost of these.
at the cost of this.
Oh.
I wouldn't be surprised if Netanyahu and the coalition government that has been formed orders the ground offensive in spite of objections against it from the military community at large. Why? Because they have to show their strength to Hamas and to Hezbollah, which is waiting in the wings. Second is they want to rebuild the image of an Israeli nation that is very strong. And third, they would want to keep control of Gaza Strip for some time, at least for some time, if not more, to prevent such incidents from recurring.
So this is just not political, these are also for security issues.
Correct.
Right.
They may lose heavily, both in terms of manpower and equipment.
Any war for that matter.
Hamas would be waiting for that day. If I was a Hamas leader, I would be waiting for the day the airstrikes would stop and the Israeli forces come in.
Right. And we also see UK and US sending their ship, the Navy ships. So what is it? Is it for a political relationship, or is it?
It's political signaling.
Okay.
They will not be able to change the dynamics of the war. It is only a signaling to other nations not to get involved in the war. I think it is directed towards Iran, so that Iran does not get pulled into this conflict.
But Iran has said that we are not supporting them. What do you think?
I would say that at a political level, they also would not like to get involved in this mess. But through their proxies, they'll definitely light the fire.
Everybody has their own proxies now. Iran, it's been few days. Lebanon. What is the organization called? Hezbollah. Even they have joined in. So where do you see, it has to de-escalate day by day, but then this is escalating. Where do you see this?
See, every war has a escalatory ladder,
Right.
stabilization phase and the de-escalation phase. Presently, we are in the escalatory ladder.
Oh,
And depending on how Israel takes the next steps,
Israel, they have said hands down, we are taking them down.
that's a political signaling, right? How they do that? See, for example, they talked of a ground operation on October 8th, first time if I remember correctly.
Okay.
8 days passed, they have massed troops, but they have not gone in.
Maybe they are waiting for something.
So what they are saying is, now they have given, 2 days back, they have given a signal that please move from the south of the Gaza,
Right.
evacuate civilians.
We saw that pictures.
We saw the pictures of civilians moving across. So they also do not want to go in, create a counter narrative to the Hamas narrative. See, the support to Israel, as I told you before, is because of the horrific images that Hamas itself flagged. Now, if Israel goes in and does the same thing, there is going to be a counter narrative and a pushback from the world community.
Right.
So they would want to delay this ground offensive, push the civilians out of the war zone, and then end.
Like playing safe. We asked you to move out, you didn't move out. Like, okay. And there is also this narrative. I don't know if I should call it that, but they say it's an intelligence failure from Israel. So is it really an intelligence failure, or how do you look at it?
It is an intelligence failure, no doubt about it, of horrific, I mean, you can't think of a worse intelligence failure. Probably the one that comes to mind is Joseph Stalin
Okay.
disregarding intelligence inputs that Germany would attack the USSR. Hitler's Germany would attack USSR, and still continuing to believe in his friendship with the Nazi strongman Adolf Hitler. Probably this would rank somewhere there. For an organization like Mossad and Shin Bet, its sister organizations, who are regarded as the best in the world, to not see its enemy, sworn enemy, amassing ammunition, explosives,
So huge.
for 5,000, 8,000 rockets, training paragliders, training commandos, so much of weaponry coming from Ukraine.
Right.
How did they gloss over it? How did they miss it? It's beyond me.
We are talking thousands.
I mean, thousands of fighters trained, staging points done, 8 staging points, I'm told.
And it cannot be that watertight as well.
No, it cannot be. Thousands of people were involved in this. How did the logistics supply move from one part of Gaza Strip to other?
So where are we concluding?
I mean, just to take that point forward, see, logistics movement is where the slip up happens usually. Because if I have to move stores from one point to the other, or I have to move militants from one staging points to the other, usually it triggers some kind of a chatter. Nothing of this was caught. Second, Israel is known as a top cyber security country.
Yeah, they are top in everything.
They're top in
defense.
everything they do.
Right.
So how did they miss the cyber chat in all this? Are we saying that the militants were so professional that they did not use any kind of
Right. It cannot be that watertight.
any
Yeah.
kind of chatter on the internet? It's hard to believe. So somewhere it has been a colossal failure, and I'm sure Israel as a country and as a community would look hard into it, be harsh on itself, and take adequate measures to ensure that it does not recur in the future. It has been a loss of face for them, surely.
Are we looking at a conspiracy theory here? I don't believe in it. I don't know, because you're an expert, so you can throw some light. Was it that Israel wanted them to attack them and then finish Hamas for once and for all?
No, this is making the rounds probably from about a week or so. I think this is an attempt by I would say leftist organizations or channels to deflect the horrific images and the narrative that Hamas attacks set. This is to deflect the attention, just as 9/11 attackers were said to be a plant of the CIA, and Modi created that Pulwama massacre. So these are all instances to counter the narrative and to put some doubt in the minds of the population. I don't think, because Israel has lost a lot in the initial 2-3 days, and it has lost not only its citizens but also its face. And IDF has lost its, it's shown its vulnerability.
Right.
So I don't think it was a operation that Israel knew and turned a blind eye on, or staged it itself. No.
So as like Israel has too much of losses that it is in right now. Hamas, I mean, the Gaza Strip also is at loss.
Correct.
So where is the gain? I mean, who is gaining politically here? Is Hamas gaining politically?
Yes. If you look at both the organizations involved, both the entities, Israel as well as Hamas, I would say Hamas has gained politically. And I'll explain it to you. They may lose militarily,
Okay.
but politically they have gained a lot. And this is my own thesis. I may be wrong, and I'm open to criticism. Why I say this is, if you look at the diplomatic arena over the last 1 year, in which India has played a leading role, you see a thawing of relations, so not thawing, a unfreezing of relationships in the Middle East. For example, Saudi Arabia and Iran had a dialogue in Beijing. Now these two countries come from diametrically opposite spectrum in the Islamic world.
For ages.
For ages.
Right.
And just like Jew and Arabs,
Right.
their history and animosity is also decades old, centuries old.
Right.
So a Shia country and a Sunni country coming together to talk was a diplomatic, I mean, I don't know what you say, it's a milestone.
Right.
Okay, if they had achieved if they had opened diplomatic missions, if they had done some things like that,
That would have been good.
that would have been good for the whole area.
Yeah.
Now, second was Israel opening up its relations with Saudi Arabia and UAE.
Okay.
Recently, probably about 6 to 12 months back, Saudi Arabia for the first time allowed Israeli airlines to fly over its territory.
Okay.
De facto, or in a diplomatic term, recognizing Israel.
Right. Okay.
So if you are allowing somebody's airline to fly over you, in a roundabout way, you are recognizing that country. Now, Saudi Arabia is the spiritual leader of the Islamic world.
Right.
And even though it may not supply arms to Hamas, it provides a lot of humanitarian assistance and money.
They provide so that it will help the civilians. Is that what what you mean?
That is the word that is thrown around.
Right.
Because you are ultimately giving it to the organization which controls Gaza Strip, which is Hamas.
Right.
So whether they put it in to enrich their arsenal or to feed the populace is your guess.
And we know what they do.
It's your, I mean, I leave it to them.
Right.
They may take their call.
Right.
So Saudi Arabia is the spiritual leader.
Okay.
If it takes a step to normalize its relationship with Israel, and let us say in a year or two, if it had normalized it, then what is the future for the Palestinian?
It's a failure for them. So there's no one to back
There is
them.
no way that Palestinian cause would come up again.
Right.
So, as the rightful owners or the owners of the Palestinian cause today, Hamas wanted to bring back the emotion of Palestine inside the Muslim world or the Muslim Brotherhood world.
Right.
So, they had to do this by this normal pinprick attacks of one terrorist going and doing something.
It doesn't help.
Doesn't help. So, they had to do something big out of scale. And I think this is what prompted them to do this. And now, if you look at the reaction from the Islamic world,
Across the world.
be it in Europe, be it in Australia, for all the matter. Australia,
I saw
I
that.
couldn't
Yeah.
believe it when I saw the reaction in Australia.
And
India,
UK, yeah.
India, UK, and our own journalists who are from that creed. None of them spoke about Hamas horrific attacks. But then
Retaliation there.
the retaliation, now everybody is saying proportionate response should be there, this should be there, that should be there. So the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian right has come back to the fore, which is what Hamas wanted, I believe, as a political objective. Second is, this attack and the Israeli response to it has stopped any diplomatic relations that could have normalized between the Arab world and Israel.
Right.
So it has set it back by a decade or two.
Right.
So that way I feel Hamas has achieved its political objective. Now whether they achieve the military objective is, I don't know. I think that's a difficult task.
Very cleverly played then, no?
Very clear, very clear.
So, what is it for us? I mean, what is in for us? Looking at all this, how should Bharat react? Or, I mean, we have already reacted. I mean, how should we prepare ourselves? Looking at such scenarios. In case if something like this happens, touch wood, nothing happens. But in case, or the lessons that we can learn from this.
See, it is not a matter of any attack happening. It is when will that attack happen against India. See, every attack by a terrorist organization is studied in detail by other terrorist organizations. The modus operandi is studied.
Okay.
So, we do not have a shortage of terrorist organizations in India who want to hurt the country, or in Bharat who want to hurt.
Inside and outside.
Both. There has to be an insider who supports with logistics and planning, right? So, this one is both all the militant organizations in Bharat would have studied this and the impact that it has created, chaos that it has created, the reaction time that IDF took to respond, and future operations would have some elements of this thrown in.
Right.
Whether it is the drone usage, whether it is the missiles usage, whether the tunnels, whether the attack on brigade headquarters, all this will have its, or whether the mass attack,
Right.
hostages,
Right.
all these elements would find a place in future attacks in India. So we should be prepared for these changes in modus operandi from our enemies.
So, are we well equipped right now, or what do you think?
That's a tough question to answer. Militarily, we are capable of handling any threat.
Okay.
But whether we will be able to defend ourselves against such a planned attack, we will also suffer losses.
Of course.
Because we are talking of a border of 10,000 kilometers, land border, and a maritime border of 7,000 kilometers.
Okay.
And these stretch from dense jungles to Himalayas to deserts, inhospitable terrain. So the terrain suits the enemy for smuggling weapons, for smuggling men. It's difficult to monitor it 24/7 and to, as they say, parinda bhi par nahi marega. All that is nonsense. So however good your counter-intelligence grid is, or counter-terrorist grid is, there will be some slip through.
Okay.
So how you react to that, what India should learn is effective decision making. For example, in Israel, the first attack took place at 6 a.m.
Okay.
The first bombing took place at about 11 o'clock. From Israeli Air Force did the first bombing at about 11 o'clock. So talking about 5 hours.
Okay. What do you say? Is that a long?
It's a good time frame. It's a good time frame. So within 5 hours,
Uh-huh.
Israeli political leadership was able to take a call that yes, there is a war on us.
Okay.
This is the way we will respond.
Okay.
We will use this weapon asset, because if you remember, even in Kargil war, we did not employ the Indian Air Force as we employed the Indian Army. We took a little time because we saw it as an escalatory ladder.
Oh.
Our political leadership at that time took a certain time. We can dwell on whether it was right or wrong, but that is how we do our work. But if you look at the Israelis, they said, yes, it is an attack on our nation. We'll use all our assets.
Timely action was there.
Timely action, decision making was timely, prompt, and they ensured that all their assets were put to use.
Now that we are looking at Israel and Hamas or Palestine, we are also talking about Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. Where are we heading? I mean, are we looking at something big? You know what I'm saying, but I don't want to say it. What do you say?
See, the world is looking at 3 or 4 hotspots now.
Right.
All right. The first one, as you said, is the recent one, is the Israel-Hamas issue. If it were to involve or pull the neighboring Arab nations, it can escalate very quickly.
Okay.
So it's a slippery slope. We don't know how it's going to pan out. That's only time would say. Coming to the Russian-Ukraine war, there it's an industrial war.
Russia is owning it.
Russia is owning it as of date. Okay. It depends on where the Russian government and Putin wants to stop.
Okay.
Right? Come spring, I think there would be an offensive there from the Russian side, which will put Ukraine back, they'll try to push Ukraine back to their capital, thereby occupying eastern Ukraine. I think Odessa, Kharkov, all of that will come under Russia. At that point, how will the Baltic states react? Poland and other states which are there, whether they'll send troops inside Western Ukraine, that is another flashpoint. If they don't send, we may see a negotiated settlement there. If they send their troops, it may quickly escalate
again. Okay.
Big. Because Poland is a part of NATO, and it may escalate into something big.
NATO might jump in.
They would not want to jump in, but you don't know how things will turn. Okay. Now, the third area that you suggested was China-Taiwan. China would be laughing all the way to the bank right now, because US is heavily involved in all other hotspots in the world, be it in Israel or be it in Russia. So even if China were to invade Taiwan in the next about 1 or 2 years, I don't think US would have the necessary wherewithal to stop it, because logistically it's too far away. So that is somewhere where China is best placed today in the world to take advantage of these hotspots. The fourth hotspot that I thought you forgot was the reawakening of national consciousness in Africa.
Okay.
And the anti-colonial culture that is cropping up there. See, for too long, through proxy colonialism, European nations had a stranglehold on African economy and African resources.
Okay.
Now, slowly, we have seen 3 countries throwing out colonialism: Niger, Burkina Faso, and one more country. So, if this were to spread, the raw material availability to Western Europe would be plugged.
Okay.
Right? France, for example, imports most of its raw materials from these countries. If that were to stop, its energy sector would go into a sheer downfall. Already Germany is is in recession because of the stopping of Nord Stream pipeline blowback.
Okay.
So Germany in recession, which is the workhorse of the European economy. France, the second next, would go down. UK is already down. So you're talking of the entire Western economy collapsing.
Oh.
So where it would lead to, and mass immigration there, mass illegal immigration there. You are seeing riots in support of Hamas in European capitals. So I would say it's a volatile situation. How they handle it will dictate whether we slip into a major war or it will be localized. I hope it will be localized.
Okay, so most of this is depend on the Islamic countries. If they decide to escalate, then the situations may change. It's just that China and Africa on the other side, then the Islamic nations, if they want, they can escalate this.
I would not say Islamic nations. There is always a reaction and an action here. If Israel were to go whole hog into Gaza, indiscriminate carpet bombing and all that, and the narrative setting by the media portrays a great deal of humanitarian suffering or human suffering in Gaza, that will put immense pressure on Jordan, where a lot of Palestinians say. We already saw a huge demonstration in Amman. Right? Egypt. All these countries' governments will be under immense pressure to help the Palestinian cause. So that is where I think it will be a fine balancing action by Israel to take out Hamas militants, at the same time control the narrative.
Right. This will be the last question, sir. We have seen, you said Hamas has gained politically, they have gained politically. But then you see now these people coming out of Gaza Strip. Nobody is ready to take them. None of the Islamic nations. I mean, then what is it? If there is no brotherhood there, nobody wants to, for example, Rohingya. Bangladesh doesn't want to take Rohingyas. Bangladesh is a Muslim country. They want to come to India. You see, Bangladesh have put them somewhere on the border. If you see their how they are living there, it's such a bad situation. And it's the same will happen to people who are walking out of Gaza Strip. So where is the brotherhood? There is no brotherhood. What do you say?
I agree with that. And unfortunately, that is the truth.
So it is just the political brotherhood they have and not the actual brotherhood.
I would say, I would support your cause till you don't become a pain.
I know what you're saying.
That's how it works.
Right. So, I mean, is this not a lesson to all the, Muslims, whatever the nation, for example, now that the Islamic countries are rejecting people from Myanmar, is it not a lesson to people staying in India that if they go out of India thinking India is not the safest place, nobody is ready to accept them? Don't you think that's the message?
First thing is, India is the safest place for anybody for that, irrespective of his religion, caste or creed. Okay. Right. In the present world, you are not even safe in European capitals as you are in India. Right. That is point number one. Point number two, this is not restricted to, this is known to all Muslims. Why? I'll tell you. When there was a Iraq-Iran war, or US invaded Iraq or Libya, where did the migration take place? Not to neighboring Arab countries.
Never.
It took place to Europe.
They'll never go to...
So recently we had this tiny Italian village, coastal island, whose strength is, I think, 3,000 or 4,000. 6,000 illegal immigrants have come in. So the immigrants themselves know that they are safer in a non-Islamic country than in an Islamic country, because the Islamic country will not accept them.
Or rather, a Sharia compliant country.
You may say that. They are aware of that,
Right.
but unfortunately, when it comes to emotions, everything overrides.
Right.
And they believe in the pan-Islamic clause.
Anyway, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for throwing some insights. So many things that I didn't know, and I'm sure the viewers also would have enjoyed it. Thank you again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.